You won't believe what I am about to tell you. One moment, I was laughing at the chaos of a family party, thinking I'd enjoy a quiet afternoon with my grandchildren, and the next, I was holding my 6-year-old granddaughter in my arms, her head completely shaved, tears streaming down her tiny face, while her mother laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. I had to remind myself to breathe, to steady my shaking hands, because all I wanted to do was scream. My name is Clara Johnson. I am 62 years old, and I've spent the better part of my life trying to hold this family together. I'm a grandmother now, proud and fiercely protective, especially of my little Amaya, my youngest granddaughter. I've always believed in the power of love, patience, and respect, but standing there, in the middle of a suburban backyard filled with balloons, barbecue smoke, and the sound of children running and laughing, I realized how fragile those things can be when the wrong people decide to treat them as a joke. I live in a quiet suburb in the United States, where most people keep their lawns trimmed and their lives orderly, or at least that's what they try to show. I've worked hard all my life, raising my children, running my home, and keeping the family bond strong even when my own heart was quietly breaking. I raised my son Marcus to be kind and ambitious, but as life went on, I've realized that raising someone to succeed doesn't always teach them the weight of responsibility or the courage to stand up to those they love. Today was supposed to be just another family gathering. Marcus and his wife, Vanessa, had invited everyone over to celebrate what she called a fun family weekend. I knew Vanessa wasn't exactly warm toward me. She had a way of cutting remarks like they were jokes, but I wanted to be there for Amaya. I wanted to see my little girl laugh, eat cake, and maybe run around with her cousins without a care in the world. I had no idea that the moment I walked through that backyard gate, the world as I knew it for that day would shatter. As soon as I stepped onto the grass, I was greeted by the usual chaos. Kids running in circles, dogs barking, and relatives greeting each other with too loud voices. The smell of barbecue and sweet icing filled the air, mixing with the warm sun that hung lazily in the sky. I waved at a few cousins I hadn't seen in months and smiled at some neighbors who had wandered over, because in our neighborhood, parties tend to spill over into everyone's front yard. Then I saw her, Amaya. My heart nearly stopped. Her small frame, usually crowned with soft, curly hair that I loved running my fingers through, was completely different. Her head was bare, smooth, shiny, and she was sitting on the edge of the picnic table, looking smaller than usual, her eyes wide and filled with confusion and hurt. Mom. Vanessa's laughter cut through the air like a blade. It's just a joke, she said, her voice dripping with amusement, as if the world had turned into a sitcom and my granddaughter's tears were punchlines. I felt something inside me snap. My legs carried me forward before my brain could catch up. I knelt down in front of Amaya, my hands trembling as I reached out to touch her. She flinched but didn't pull away, and that small motion, her trust, even in that moment of humiliation, made my stomach clench. Sweetheart, I whispered, brushing my fingers over the little scalp I had loved to braid and comb. What happened? I didn't want it, Grandma, she said, her voice barely audible. My chest tightened, and I swallowed a scream. Vanessa waved a hand dismissively, still chuckling. It's nothing. Don't be dramatic, Clara. It's just hair, it'll grow back. Just hair? Just a joke? I stared at her, my mind trying to process the sheer cruelty masked as humor. But before I could say a word, Marcus stepped forward. His tone, frustrated and impatient, was sharp. Mom, stop being dramatic. She's my wife, and it's really not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal? My son's words felt like daggers. I wanted to explain that protecting a child from humiliation isn't dramatic, it's essential. That teaching someone that it's okay to treat others this way is nothing short of cruel. But I couldn't think of words. Instead, I scooped Amaya into my arms. I'm taking her home, I said firmly, my voice stronger than I felt. The air seemed to crackle with tension as Vanessa tried to laugh it off, while Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief. Clara, wait, he started. No, I said, cutting him off. This is not a discussion. She is 6 years old, and she deserves better. As I walked away, holding my granddaughter against me, I could hear the party continue behind us, Vanessa's laughter mingling with Marcus's frustrated muttering. But in that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was Amaya, her small body shaking with silent sobs against my chest, and my promise to her that I would never let anyone treat her like this, not on my watch. Walking back to my car, I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and resolve. Anger at Vanessa for thinking this was funny. Heartbreak for the innocent soul who had no choice in this. Resolve that I would not be silent, that I would stand for what was right, even if it meant standing alone. Driving home, Amaya slowly relaxed in my arms, resting her head against my shoulder. I whispered stories about her mother as a baby, about how hair grows back and how her curls were stronger than ever, all the while silently vowing to protect her from anyone who tried to belittle or humiliate her. At home, I prepared tea and sat Amaya down at the kitchen table. I wanted to give her space, to let her know she was safe, and that this was not her fault. As she sipped her tea quietly, I felt a surge of determination. This incident, as cruel as it was, would not define our family. I would make sure of that. Before I continue with what happens next, I want to take a moment to connect with you. If this story so far resonates with you, if you've ever felt the sting of seeing someone you love treated unfairly, or if you appreciate tales of strength and family, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you can follow along with every chapter. I'd also love to hear from you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from, because I know stories like this touch hearts all over the world. But back to our story. I had no idea that leaving that party would be the beginning of a whirlwind that would test every ounce of patience, love, and courage I had built over my 62 years. I didn't yet know that Marcus would later beg me for forgiveness, or that I would have to make choices that would shake the very foundation of our family. For now, though, it was just Amaya and me. And for the first time that day, she smiled. A small, tentative smile, but it was enough to remind me why I fight. Why I never back down, and why, no matter what, I will always be her grandmother. The next morning, I woke to the soft sunlight spilling into my kitchen, filtering through the lace curtains I'd spent years carefully choosing. Amaya was still asleep in the guest room, tucked under her little quilt, and for a moment, I let myself breathe. For a fleeting second, it felt like the chaos of yesterday had never happened. But that illusion shattered almost immediately when my phone buzzed insistently on the counter. It was Marcus. I didn't want to answer at first. Part of me wanted to keep him waiting, to let him sit with the weight of yesterday and feel even a fraction of what I had felt. But then I thought of Amaya and the little girl who had clung to me as if I were the only safe place in the world, and I picked up the phone. "Mom." Marcus's voice came through, trembling slightly, but still tinged with the familiar impatience that had been his armor since childhood. "Please, can we talk? Just for a minute." I gritted my teeth and leaned against the counter, trying to steady the anger that had woken with me. "What is there to talk about, Marcus?" "Yesterday, I saw my granddaughters had shaved. Your wife laughed about it. I don't need a conversation. I need an explanation and an apology. And Amaya needs you to protect her." There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable silence. Then his voice softened, almost broken. "Mom, I know you're upset. I know you're angry. And I didn't see it the way you did. I didn't realize how serious it would feel. You thought it would be funny." I cut him off sharply. "You thought it would be funny to see a child, your daughter, humiliated, and then brush it off as a joke." "No," he said, his voice rising slightly, betraying his panic. "It wasn't supposed to be humiliating. Vanessa didn't mean to." "She didn't mean to?" I echoed incredulously. "Marcus, she shaved her head. 6 years old. And you sat there, letting her laugh at your daughter like it was nothing. Amaya doesn't understand joke, yet. She's 6 years old. Do you even hear yourself?" His silence this time was heavier, more weighted with guilt. I see that now. I do, Mom. I didn't want to argue. Vanessa, she can be difficult. I didn't know what to do, and You didn't know what to do? I snapped, gripping the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. Marcus, protecting your child isn't about knowing what to do. It's about standing up when something is wrong. Do you think letting her laugh while Amaya cried is acceptable behavior? Do you even care how that makes her feel? I care. I care, Mom. His voice broke, and I could hear the desperation, the raw edge of a man who suddenly realized that he had failed in one of the most fundamental ways a parent can fail. I didn't see it that way. I thought it was harmless. I cut him off again, softer this time, though the anger still simmered beneath the surface. Marcus, think about her, not about what you thought. Your daughter trusted you. She looked to you for protection, and you let her down. And now you want me to believe that everything will be fine if we just sweep it under the rug. There was a long, quiet pause, and I could almost hear him swallowing hard on the other end. Finally, he whispered, "No, Mom, you're right. You're right. I messed up. I didn't see it. But please, can we fix this? Please, can you give Vanessa a chance? I know she went too far, but I think she's sorry. I think she didn't realize how it would hurt Amaya." I closed my eyes and leaned back against the counter, letting out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on me, the familiar pull of being the one who had to hold the family together, even when no one else seemed to care. But part of me also felt the sting of betrayal. Marcus's words were a bandage over a wound that was still raw. I had no intention of pretending the hurt didn't exist. "Marcus," I said finally, my voice calm but firm, "I am not giving Vanessa a chance until she acknowledges what she did. Until she looks Amaya in the eyes and apologizes sincerely. Until she understands that this isn't just about hair or a joke. It's about respect and dignity. You need to understand that I am not going to let her treat your child like she owns the right to decide what is funny at someone else's expense." I understand," he said, his tone quiet, almost pleading. "I do, Mom. But can you at least meet us halfway? I don't want this to tear the family apart." I bit the inside of my cheek, feeling a mixture of frustration and sorrow. Halfway doesn't exist when it comes to protecting a child, Marcus. Amaya doesn't need half measures. She doesn't need apologies that are whispered behind closed doors or excuses that try to make her pain seem small. She needs to know that what happened was wrong and that her parents will never, ever treat her that way again. There was another pause, and I could hear him struggling for words. "Mom, I get it. I really do. I messed up. I see that now. Can you at least come over today? I want you to talk to her. To Amaya. I need your guidance. Please." I stayed silent for a moment, letting the weight of his request sink in. Part of me wanted to say no, to walk away completely, to show them that actions have consequences and that I would not be treated as a doormat. But then I thought of Amaya, of her small face, her tiny frame, the way she had clung to me yesterday as if I were the only person in the world she could trust. And I knew that I couldn't abandon her. Not now, not ever. "Fine," I said finally, my voice low but resolute. "I'll come over. But Marcus, you need to understand something. I am not here to make excuses for anyone. I am here for Amaya. And if Vanessa doesn't understand that, then she doesn't deserve to be left alone with her mistakes." "Thank you, Mom," he said quietly, almost a whisper. "Thank you. I'll make sure she knows. I'll make sure she understands." I hung up the phone and leaned against the counter, closing my eyes. I could feel the anger simmering still, the protective instinct in me flaring hotter than ever. This wasn't just about a haircut. This was about a child's innocence, a family's respect, and the line that had been crossed so recklessly that it left me shaking with disbelief. After a moment, I went to wake Amaya. She rubbed her eyes sleepily, looking up at me with that small, tentative smile she had given me the night before. I hugged her gently, feeling the warmth of her body against mine, and whispered, "We're going to fix this, baby. I promise you, we'll make it right." She nodded, still half asleep, and I could see the tiny spark of hope returning to her eyes. And in that moment, I realized that while yesterday had been devastating, it had also awakened something powerful in me, a determination to stand firm, to protect the ones I love, and to remind everyone in that family that love without respect is meaningless. I spent the morning preparing myself mentally. I reviewed everything I wanted to say to Vanessa, to Marcus, and most importantly, to Amaya. I knew this confrontation wouldn't be easy. I knew Vanessa would likely try to deflect, to excuse her behavior, to make it seem like a joke again. But I also knew that I was done standing silently while my granddaughter was made to feel small, humiliated, or unimportant. By the time I arrived at their house, the air had turned heavy with anticipation. Marcus greeted me at the door, looking nervous, almost apologetic. "Thanks for coming, Mom," he said quietly. I know it's not easy. It's never easy when someone's hurt a child," I replied, stepping past him into the house. My eyes immediately searched for Amaya, and I saw her sitting on the couch, fidgeting with her hands, her head still bare. My heart clenched, and I moved toward her, kneeling down to be at eye level. "Hey, baby girl," I said softly. "How are you feeling?" She looked up at me, her eyes wide, and whispered, "I don't like it, Grandma. I don't like it at all." "I know, sweetheart," I said, wrapping my arms around her. "And that's why we're going to make sure everyone understands that it's not okay. Not ever. You're brave, you know that? You're strong. And nothing anyone says can change that." As I held her, I could hear Marcus clearing his throat behind me. Vanessa was standing nearby, arms crossed, a half smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. I could tell she was trying to act casual, trying to make it seem like yesterday hadn't happened. But I wasn't fooled. Not for a second. "Vanessa," I said, my voice firm, "we need to talk. And I need you to understand something very clearly. This isn't about hair. This isn't about a joke. This is about respect, dignity, and understanding the impact of your actions on a child who trusts you." Her smile faltered, and I could see the flicker of unease in her eyes. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, and I knew he was finally realizing that the simplicity with which he had brushed off the situation was gone. The weight of yesterday hung heavy in the room, and I could feel the tension building like a storm ready to break. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "You have a choice here, Vanessa. You can either take responsibility for what happened and apologize sincerely to Amaya, or you can continue to act as though this is all a joke. And I will tell you right now, if you choose the latter, I will make sure Amaya never feels unprotected again. Do you understand me?" Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment, I wondered if she would refuse. But then, slowly, almost reluctantly, she nodded. I'm sorry, Amaya. I didn't know it would hurt you like this. I didn't mean. Amaya's eyes welled with tears again, and I pulled her closer, whispering, "It's okay, baby. That's all I wanted to hear. That's all that matters." Marcus let out a long, shaky breath, and I could see the relief mixed with guilt in his face. For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, this family could begin to heal. But I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The real challenge wasn't the apology. It was ensuring that boundaries were respected, that Amaya's innocence was protected, and that the family would never again allow cruelty to masquerade as humor. And I was ready to fight for that, no matter what it took. The next few days after the apology were quiet, but the kind of quiet that carries a weight heavier than any argument. Amaya and I had returned home, and for a brief moment, I allowed myself to imagine that the storm had passed. But I knew better. The storm hadn't passed, it had just shifted. It was lying in wait, like a predator circling, and I had to stay vigilant. Amaya was quieter than usual, fidgeting with her dolls and whispering about school and friends, but I could see the shadow of insecurity behind her bright eyes. Even the smallest things, like someone mentioning haircuts or jokes, would make her flinch. My heart ached for her, but I also knew I had to help her navigate this without letting the fear take root. I had just finished making her favorite breakfast, pancakes with chocolate chips and strawberries, when the phone rang. It was Marcus again, and the sound of his voice made my chest tighten. "Mom, we need to talk," he said hesitantly. I sighed, placing the plate in front of Amaya. "Marcus, I thought we talked." What more is there to discuss? There's more, Mom. Vanessa isn't. She's not taking it well. She's upset that you came down so hard. And I don't know what to do, he admitted, his voice almost breaking. I could feel my patience fraying. Marcus, listen carefully. Amaya's well-being comes first. Vanessa's feelings do not outweigh your daughter's safety or dignity. Do you understand me? Yes, I understand. But she says I'm choosing sides. That I'm letting you, I don't know, control everything. She says I'm supposed to support her, and now she's angry at me. I took a deep breath, letting the tension drain from my shoulders just enough to speak clearly. Marcus, supporting a parent does not mean neglecting your child. You chose to bring her into this world. You chose to be responsible for her protection. Vanessa's anger does not absolve her of the cruelty she inflicted. You need to stand by your daughter, not her convenience. He was quiet for a long moment. I could hear the struggle in his breathing, the way he was wrestling with loyalty, love, and fear all at once. Finally, he whispered, I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't know how to fix this. You fix this by doing what's right, not what's easy, I said firmly. You apologize to Amaya properly. You make sure Vanessa understands she cannot ever do something like this again. And you remember that your job as a father is to protect your child, even if it means facing your wife's anger. The line went silent, and I hung up, feeling a grim determination settle over me. Marcus needed to understand that this wasn't just a one-time mistake. This was a pattern of behavior that had been building beneath the surface, and I wasn't going to let it continue. Later that day, I decided to take Amaya for a walk to clear her mind. The air was crisp, the kind of sharp autumn morning that makes your lungs feel alive and reminds you of the world beyond your worries. Amaya held my hand tightly, her small fingers gripping mine like a lifeline. Grandma, she said softly, looking up at me, why would Mommy do that to me? I knelt down beside her, brushing a strand of hair away from her forehead. Sweetheart, sometimes people make choices that are wrong. They think it's funny, or they don't understand how much it can hurt. But that doesn't mean it's your fault. It means we have to teach them, and we protect ourselves along the way. Her eyes filled with tears again, and I held her close. You're brave, Amaya. And nothing anyone does can take that away from you. Not even grown-ups who forget how to be kind. She sniffled and nodded, resting her head against my shoulder. I don't want them to be mad at you, Grandma. I don't want you to fight. I hugged her tighter. Oh, baby, I fight because I love you. I fight because you're my family. And sometimes, fighting is the only way to make sure the people we love are safe. That evening, Marcus called again, asking me to come over. I could sense the tension in his voice, a mixture of desperation and fear that I hadn't heard before. I told Amaya to finish her homework and get ready, and we drove to their house, the crisp night air carrying a chill that matched the unease I felt in my chest. As soon as we arrived, Vanessa was waiting in the living room. She was dressed carefully, her hair pulled back, her posture perfect, but there was a sharp edge to her expression that made my stomach turn. Marcus was pacing behind her, wringing his hands nervously. I stepped inside, holding Amaya's hand firmly. Vanessa, we need to speak honestly, I began. Not with jokes, not with excuses. Your daughter has been hurt. This cannot be brushed aside. Vanessa smiled thinly. Clara, I said I'm sorry. Isn't that enough? Is it enough to simply say the words, or do you understand the pain you caused? I asked, my voice calm but loaded with authority. Because if it's just words, it means nothing. Amaya deserves more than words. She deserves understanding, care, and respect. She huffed, rolling her eyes slightly, and I felt my anger flare again. You think this is drama, don't you? That because you apologized it's over? That because Marcus is standing here, I should accept your half-hearted words. Mom, please, Marcus said quickly, trying to intervene, but I held up a hand. No, Marcus. This is not about you. This is about her, and if she can't see that, then she needs to understand that actions have consequences. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of this. It's just hair. She'll grow it back. You're making it worse than it is. I felt my hands ball into fists at my sides. Vanessa, this is not about hair. This is about a 6-year-old child, about teaching her that her feelings matter and that she will not be treated like a prop for someone else's amusement. You humiliated her. You laughed while she cried. That is cruel, and it is unacceptable. Do you understand? Her expression faltered, and I could see the flash of guilt, though she tried to mask it. I guess so, she said finally, her voice tight. I knelt down to Amaya's level and whispered to her, Do you want to tell Mommy how it made you feel? She hesitated, glancing nervously at Vanessa, but then, encouraged by my gaze, she spoke softly. I didn't like it. It hurt my feelings. I cried. I don't want that again. Vanessa looked away, her face hardening slightly, but Marcus stepped forward. Vanessa, she's telling you honestly. That's all she needs from you. Honesty, and to not have this happen again. There was a long silence. I could feel the tension thickening the room, the air heavy with unspoken words and the weight of what had transpired. I held Amaya's hand, feeling her small fingers tremble, and I knew I couldn't let this go unresolved. Vanessa, I said finally, my voice low but sharp, if this ever happens again, if you ever think it's funny to hurt my granddaughter, then you will not be left alone with her. Do you understand me? Her eyes flicked to Marcus, and I could see him nod slightly, silently reinforcing the boundary I had set. I understand, she said finally, her voice quiet, but there was no warmth in it. I straightened, feeling a mix of relief and wariness. Good, because this family is built on respect, love, and care. If we lose sight of that, we lose everything. And I will not allow anyone, not even those closest to me, to hurt the children I love. That night, as I held Amaya close before bed, I felt the weight of the day pressing down on me. I had stood up for her, yes, but I knew this was only the beginning. Vanessa's arrogance, her inability to see beyond her own amusement, would not vanish overnight. Marcus's indecision and need to please both sides would continue to test me. But I also knew something vital. My presence, my voice, my unwavering defense of Amaya had made a difference. Amaya curled up against me, her small hand clutching mine. Thank you, Grandma, she whispered. You're welcome, baby, I murmured, kissing her forehead. And remember this. No one can take away your worth. No one can make you feel small unless you let them. And I will always be here to remind you how strong and loved you are. As I left her room and sat alone in the quiet of my house, I realized that the fight was far from over. This was a battle for respect, dignity, and love, things that cannot be compromised. And I was ready. No matter the challenges, no matter the resistance, I would stand firm. Because protecting Amaya was not just a choice, it was my duty, my honor, and my legacy. The days after the confrontation felt like walking on eggshells. The quiet was no longer comforting. It was tense, loaded with anticipation, like the world was holding its breath. Every time I looked at Amaya, I saw a flicker of fear, a hesitation in her movements, and I knew the incident had left a mark deeper than hair could ever cover. My heart ached for her, and yet I felt a growing fire inside me, a determination that this family, my family, would not be fractured by arrogance and cruelty. I spent those mornings preparing breakfast for Amaya, making sure she had her favorite pancakes, her chocolate milk, and her little flower-shaped cookies she loved so much. As she ate quietly, I watched her hands tremble slightly as she touched her smooth scalp. It was a small gesture, but it tore at my heart. I wanted to take away her pain, to erase the memory entirely, but I knew I couldn't. What I could do was guide her, teach her resilience, and make sure she knew she was never alone. After breakfast, I decided to take Amaya to the park. The crisp air filled our lungs as we walked, her small hand wrapped in mine. The leaves crunched under our feet, a sound that should have been cheerful but felt strangely ominous, like nature itself was mirroring the tension inside me. Grandma, she said softly, looking up at me, do you think Mommy will ever understand how it feels? I knelt down beside her, brushing a stray strand of hair from her forehead. Amaya, some people take a long time to understand. Some may never truly see things the way we do. But that doesn't mean we let them hurt us, or that we let them think it's okay. We stand firm. We speak up. And we protect ourselves and those we love. Her eyes glimmered with tears, and she clutched my hand tightly. I don't want to be scared anymore, she whispered. You won't be, I assured her. Not while I'm here. And you're stronger than you think. Never forget that. We spent the next hour at the swings. Amaya hesitated at first, her small legs not quite reaching the ground as she tried to push herself forward. I gave her gentle encouragement, my hands steadying her back, my voice soft but firm. Slowly, she began to swing higher, her laughter mingling with the wind. It was a small victory, but in that moment, I felt a spark of hope. Even after the humiliation, even after the pain, she could still find joy. Later, back at home, I sat Amaya at the table and asked her to draw pictures for me. She hesitated, picking up her crayons carefully, as though unsure if she was allowed to express herself freely. Then, slowly, she began to draw. A house, a tree, a little girl with curly hair. Her eyes focused, her hands moving deliberately. And as she worked, I realized that this was more than just a distraction. It was therapy, a way for her to reclaim a sense of normalcy and control over her world. I leaned back, watching her, and I felt a mix of pride and sadness. Pride for her resilience, sadness for the unnecessary pain she had endured. And I knew that this incident, as horrible as it had been, would shape her, but I was determined that it would shape her in strength, not fear. The phone rang in the afternoon, and I knew before I picked it up who it was. Vanessa. Clara. Her voice was tight, almost forced. I want to talk. I sat down heavily, my eyes narrowing. Talk about what? I asked, my voice controlled, but cold. About Amaya. About yesterday, she said, fumbling for words. I just want you to know I didn't mean... You didn't mean... I interrupted sharply. Vanessa, it's not about meaning. It's about action and consequence. You hurt a child. You humiliated her. You laughed while she cried. Do you understand that? There was silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, quick and shallow. I understand. I just didn't realize. Don't finish that sentence, I snapped. There is no just didn't realize when it comes to a child's feelings. You need to take responsibility, Vanessa. Not excuses. Not half-hearted apologies. Responsibility. I don't know what you want me to say, she admitted finally, her voice low. I said I'm sorry, didn't I? Words are meaningless if they don't come from a heart, I said. Amaya needs to see that you understand the pain you caused. That's what matters. That's what counts. And you need to ensure it never happens again. Do you understand? Yes, she whispered finally. I think I understand. I hung up and sat back, my chest tight with the tension I could not release. Vanessa's voice had sounded fragile, almost remorseful, but I knew better than to trust it entirely. She had a way of twisting situations to make herself seem like the victim, and I would not allow her to manipulate Amaya or me again. That evening, Marcus came over. His face was pale, his eyes avoiding mine. Mom, he said quietly, I don't know what to do anymore. She's not handling this well. Vanessa, she's upset. And I took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of resolve that had carried me through so many family crises. Marcus, I said firmly, this isn't about who's upset. This is about what's right. Amaya's feelings matter. Your daughter's dignity matters. If Vanessa can't see that, then it's not your job to smooth things over for her. It's your job to protect Amaya. He nodded slowly, finally meeting my eyes. I know. I don't want to lose her. I don't want this to break our family. You can't control her feelings, I said softly, placing a hand on his arm. You can control your actions. And your actions need to be in line with what's best for Amaya. Everything else comes second. The next day, I invited Amaya to help me in the kitchen. I wanted her to feel useful, strong, and capable. She chopped vegetables carefully under my watchful eye, her small hands steady and determined. We talked quietly, mostly about school, her friends, and her favorite cartoons, but beneath it all, I could feel her processing the events of the past week. "Grandma," she said suddenly, looking up at me with wide, solemn eyes, "do you think Mommy will really understand one day?" I smiled gently, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "Some people take a long time to understand, baby. But even if they never fully do, we keep standing up for what's right. And that's what matters. You, your feelings, your heart, that's what matters." Later, as I sat alone, reflecting on the week, I realized something crucial. This was bigger than just hair, bigger than just a party. This was about patterns of behavior, about boundaries, about respect and dignity. And I understood that if I didn't stand firm now, the consequences would ripple through our family for years. That night, Marcus called again. "Mom," he said nervously, "Vanessa, she's not talking to me. She's angry that I'm letting you guide this. She thinks I'm choosing sides." "And you are," I said simply. "You're choosing your daughter over convenience. You're choosing right over comfort. That's what a father does. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for that." "But she's so angry," he whispered. "She says I'm turning Amaya against her." "Marcus," I said, my voice steady but cold, "if standing up for a child turns her against you, then so be it. Amaya's well-being comes first. If Vanessa can't see that, it's not your responsibility to make her understand. It's your responsibility to protect your child." There was silence, then a quiet, almost defeated sigh. I understand, Mom. I really do. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't know how to do this without everyone being angry." "You can't control how people feel," I said firmly. "You can only control your actions. And your actions must align with what's best for Amaya. Nothing else matters. Nothing." That night, I stayed up long after Amaya had fallen asleep, staring out the window at the darkened streets. The world seemed so quiet, so deceptively peaceful. But I knew better. I knew that the real challenges were coming, the ones that would test Marcus, Vanessa, and me. The ones that would force everyone to confront their choices, their values, and the way they treated the people they claimed to love. And I was ready. I had to be. Because protecting Amaya was not just a duty, it was my mission, my promise, and my purpose. You won't believe how quickly things escalated after that week of tension. I thought the apology and the quiet conversations with Amaya would bring some peace, maybe even a small sense of normalcy. I was wrong. It started early on a Saturday morning. I had promised Amaya we'd bake cookies, just the two of us, and for a little while, I wanted her to forget the humiliation of the past week. She was buzzing with excitement, her small feet barely touching the floor as she danced around the kitchen, pulling out flour and sugar, measuring spoons in hand. I couldn't help but smile at her, my heart swelling with love for this little girl who had endured so much in such a short time. "Grandma, can I stir the chocolate chips?" she asked, her voice bright with anticipation. "Of course, baby," I said, handing her the wooden spoon. "But remember, careful with the batter. It's sticky." We worked side by side, flour dusting our arms and cheeks, chocolate chips spilling onto the counter. And for a while, it felt like any ordinary Saturday. That is, until the phone rang. It was Marcus. His voice, though soft, carried a tension I hadn't heard before. "Mom, can you come over? We need to talk." I frowned, wiping my hands on a towel. "What's wrong?" "It's Vanessa. She's not handling things well. I think it's about Amaya. I think she's upset again." I felt a familiar heat rising in my chest. Anger, protectiveness, the relentless need to shield my granddaughter from further harm. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, I said firmly. "Don't do anything until I get there." I grabbed my coat, making sure Amaya was safe in the living room with her favorite show on, and drove over. The streets were busy with Saturday traffic, but my mind was focused entirely on what I might find. When I arrived, I could hear voices before I even stepped inside the house. Vanessa's laughter, that sharp, dismissive, careless laugh that had haunted my dreams for a week. I felt my stomach twist. I opened the door, and there she was, standing in the kitchen with Marcus between us, her hands on her hips like she owned the place. "Clara," she said, her tone sugary but laced with venom, "so glad you could join us." I stepped inside, keeping my voice calm but firm. "Vanessa, we need to talk."
Now.
"Oh, we can talk," she said, tilting her head with a smirk. "But let's not make this worse than it is. Really, it's just hair. Amaya will grow it back. Don't be so dramatic." The words hit me like a slap. My hands clenched at my sides, and I felt the familiar surge of fury, the protective instinct for Amaya boiling over. "Vanessa, this is not about hair. It is about humiliation, cruelty, and teaching a child that her feelings don't matter. You did not just make a mistake. You intentionally embarrassed her, and you laughed while she cried. That is unacceptable." Marcus's face was pale, his mouth open like he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. I turned to him sharply. "Marcus, do not stand there silently. You need to support your daughter."
Now.
I do, Mom, he said, his voice shaking. I don't know how to. "You know exactly how to," I snapped. "You step up for your child. You acknowledge what was done wrong. You make sure it doesn't happen again. That's all you need to do." Vanessa laughed again, a short, sharp laugh that made my skin crawl. "You think this is so serious, Clara? Honestly, sometimes I wonder why Marcus listens to you more than me. I'm his wife." "You are not his wife when it comes to protecting a child," I said coldly. "You are a guest in her life, and you will respect her, or you will not be left alone with her. Do you understand?" Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer, towering over Marcus and me, her voice low and dangerous. "Or what, Clara? You'll take her away? You think threatening me makes you some kind of hero?" I didn't flinch. I met her gaze, steady and unyielding. "No threats. Just consequences. You humiliate my granddaughter again, and I will not hesitate to act. I will protect her, Vanessa. That is my duty. That is my promise." Marcus stepped forward, placing a hand on Vanessa's arm. "Stop it, Vanessa. Mom is right. You went too far." She yanked her arm away, spinning to face him. "Marcus, how can you side with her over me? I'm your wife. You're supposed to support me." "I support my daughter," he said firmly, his voice stronger than I'd heard it in days. "I support Amaya. And if you can't accept that, then maybe you shouldn't be here right now." Vanessa's face flushed red with fury. "You think you can just take her side? You think I'll let you control everything? You." I held up a hand, my voice low and deadly calm. "Enough. This ends now. I will not allow you to make my granddaughter feel small, insignificant, or ashamed. Not today, not tomorrow, and not ever. Marcus, Amaya, you need to understand that standing firm is not cruelty. It is love. It is protection. And Vanessa, you will respect that, or you will face the consequences of your actions." Her eyes flicked to Amaya, who had appeared silently in the doorway, clutching her blanket. The child's eyes were wide, tearful, and filled with fear, and I felt my heart twist. I stepped toward her, pulling her close, my body shielding her. Vanessa's mouth opened as if to speak, but no words came. The tension was palpable, thick in the air, like a storm ready to break. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, but his eyes met mine, a silent acknowledgement that he was finally seeing the gravity of the situation. "Mom, please," he said softly, "don't make it worse." I shook my head. "Marcus, this is not about making it worse. This is about making it right. Amaya deserves to know that she is safe, that she is valued, and that she will not be humiliated in her own home by someone who thinks laughter excuses cruelty." Vanessa's hands shook slightly at her sides. You're unbelievable," she whispered. "I am what is necessary," I said, my voice unwavering. "And right now, what is necessary is that Amaya feels safe. She will not be subjected to your jokes or your cruelty ever again. Do you understand?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she nodded stiffly. I understand." I didn't relax, not entirely. Her acknowledgement was a start, but it was fragile, like a thin layer of ice over deep water. I knew the real test would come in the days and weeks ahead, as Vanessa tried to navigate her anger, her ego, and her inability to see beyond herself. But for now, Amaya was safe, and that was what mattered. I knelt down to her level, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. Amaya, baby, are you okay? She nodded, her small face pressed against my chest. I'm scared, Grandma, she whispered. I know, sweetheart, I said softly, holding her tightly. But you are safe. You are loved. And no one can hurt you while I am here. Remember that. That night, I stayed up late after Amaya had gone to bed, my mind racing. I knew this confrontation was only the beginning. Vanessa's pride, her anger, her inability to empathize, these were forces I would have to contend with daily. Marcus was finally taking a stand, but I could see the strain in his face, the way he struggled to balance loyalty, love, and responsibility. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, staring out at the quiet streets, the streetlights casting long shadows. I thought about the past week, about the choices that had brought us here, and about the battles that were yet to come. I knew I would have to remain vigilant, unyielding, and steadfast, because protecting Amaya wasn't optional. It wasn't a matter of preference. It was my duty, my honor, and my promise. And as I sat there, the cool night air drifting through the slightly open window, I made a silent vow. No matter the resistance, no matter the anger, no matter the attempts to undermine me, I would stand firm. I would fight for my granddaughter's dignity, her innocence, and her right to feel safe in the people's homes who claimed to love her. Because she deserved nothing less than everything I could give. You won't believe what happened the day after that confrontation. I thought we had set boundaries. I thought Vanessa would finally understand that her games, her laughter at my granddaughter's expense, and her lack of empathy had consequences. I was wrong. The morning started quietly enough. I woke early, as I always do, to the sound of the birds outside my window. Amaya was still asleep, curled up under her quilt, and for a moment, I let myself breathe. But the calm was deceptive, because instinctively I knew it wouldn't last. I was just making coffee when the phone rang. It was Marcus. I picked it up, and even through the line, I could sense his nervousness. Mom, he said quietly, almost desperately. I don't know how to say this, but Vanessa she's planning something. My stomach sank. Something? What do you mean? She wants to, well, it's about Amaya. She thinks if she does something drastic, it will, I don't know, make her point. I felt my pulse quicken. Marcus, speak clearly. What is she planning? I think she wants to shave her head again. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. My hands gripped the counter until my knuckles turned white. I could hear Amaya stirring in the next room, and my heart clenched at the thought of her facing that humiliation again. Marcus, I said, my voice sharp, controlled. You need to stop this immediately. You cannot let her near your daughter if she's thinking about doing that. Do you understand me? Yes, I know, Mom, he said, his voice tight with guilt and fear. I tried talking to her, but she won't listen. She says I'm siding with you and that I don't support her. I don't know what to do. You do know what to do, I said firmly. Protect your child. That's your job. That's your responsibility. Nothing else matters. I'll come over right now. Stay with Amaya and don't let Vanessa anywhere near her until I arrive. I hung up, my mind racing. I grabbed my coat and keys, my eyes darting around the kitchen as I considered what I needed to take with me. I knew this wouldn't be just another talk. Vanessa's arrogance, her need to assert control, and her inability to understand consequences meant this was going to be a battle. A fight to defend my granddaughter's dignity, safety, and peace. When I arrived at their house, the tension in the air was thick. I could hear Vanessa's laughter echoing through the hallway before I even stepped inside. I froze for a moment, my heart pounding, then forced myself to move forward. I had faced her before. I could face her again. I opened the door to see Vanessa standing over Amaya, who was sitting on the couch, her small body tense, her hands clutching her blanket. Vanessa held a pair of scissors in her hand, her expression smug and calculated. "Clara," Vanessa said, her voice deceptively sweet, "so nice of you to drop by. I was just teaching Amaya a lesson." I felt my blood boil. Every protective instinct in me flared to life. I took a step forward, my voice firm and unwavering. "Vanessa, put those scissors down. Now. You will not touch her. Do you hear me?" Vanessa's smirk faltered for a split second, but she recovered quickly. "Clara, don't be so dramatic. It's just a haircut. She'll grow it back." "Really, you're making a mountain out of a molehill." I felt my hands clench into fists at my sides. "It is not just a haircut. It is humiliation. It is cruelty. It is wrong. And I will not allow my granddaughter to be treated this way." "Put the scissors down. Now." Marcus stepped forward, his face pale. "Vanessa, please. Just stop. Mom's right. You're going too far." Vanessa spun on him, eyes blazing. "Too far? You're siding with her over me? How could you, Marcus? I'm your wife, your partner. You're supposed to support me." Marcus's jaw tightened. "No. I support my daughter. I support Amaya. And if you can't respect that, then you need to leave the room. Now." Vanessa's lips pressed together, her chest heaving with anger. For a moment, it looked like she might refuse, but then, almost reluctantly, she dropped the scissors onto the table. The clatter sounded deafening in the silence that followed. I knelt beside Amaya, pulling her close. "Baby girl, are you okay?" I whispered. She nodded quickly, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm scared, Grandma," she said softly. "I know, sweetheart," I said, stroking her hair gently. "But you are safe. Nothing is going to happen to you. I promise." I stood, facing Vanessa. "You need to understand something, Vanessa. This behavior, this arrogance, this need to control, is not acceptable. Not in this house, not in this family, and certainly not toward a child. If you ever attempt to humiliate Amaya again, there will be consequences. Do you understand me?" Vanessa's face flushed red, her hands trembling slightly. I understand," she said finally, her voice tight. I didn't believe her completely, but for now, the immediate threat had passed. I turned to Marcus. "You need to set boundaries, Marcus. You cannot allow this behavior to continue. Amaya must see that both her parents will protect her. If Vanessa refuses to respect her, then she needs to be removed from the situation." Marcus nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and determination. I know, Mom. I don't want to hurt anyone, but you're right. I have to protect Amaya." The rest of the day was tense. Vanessa avoided me, muttering under her breath, while Marcus tried to mediate, though it was clear he was still torn between loyalty and responsibility. Amaya stayed close to me, her little hand wrapped around mine, her eyes wide with both fear and trust. I could see the relief in her posture, the way she relaxed slightly knowing I was there to protect her. Later, I sat with Amaya in the living room, trying to create a sense of normalcy. I pulled out a book and read to her, my voice soft and soothing. She leaned against me, her small body shaking slightly as she processed the events of the day. "Grandma," she said quietly, looking up at me with wide eyes, "why does Mommy do things like that?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Sweetheart, sometimes people do things that are wrong. Sometimes they don't understand how their actions affect others. But that doesn't mean it's your fault. You are brave, strong, and loved. And nothing anyone does can change that. Not even grown-ups who forget how to be kind." Her lips trembled, and she buried her face in my chest. I don't want to be scared anymore." "You won't be, baby," I whispered, holding her tightly. "Not while I'm here. And you're stronger than you know. Remember that." That night, as I left their house, I felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. Vanessa's arrogance, her manipulations, and her inability to empathize were not going to disappear overnight. Marcus was finally starting to take a stand, but the strain on him was visible, And I knew this was only the beginning of a long battle. Back at home, I sat in the quiet of my living room, staring out the window at the darkened streets. I thought about the events of the day, about the fear and bravery I had witnessed, and about the challenges that lay ahead. Vanessa's behavior was a threat, yes, but it was also an opportunity. An opportunity to teach Amaya about strength, boundaries, and self-respect. I made a promise to myself. No matter how difficult, no matter how angry, no matter how manipulative Vanessa became, I would stand firm. I would protect Amaya, defend her dignity, and ensure that she knew her worth. Because this was more than a family dispute. This was about teaching a child that she is never too small to demand respect, that she is never too young to be safe, and that the people who love her will always fight for her. And I was ready to fight. If this story has touched you, or if you've ever stood up to protect someone you love, show your support by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the bell icon so you never miss a new chapter. I'd also love to hear from you. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from and how you would have handled this intense family drama. Your story matters, and sharing it could inspire others who are facing similar struggles.